Insurance isn't one size fits all, and shopping for it shouldn't feel like squeezing into something that just doesn't fit. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they show you options that fit your budget. Enough hunting for discounts, trying to calculate rates, and tinkering with coverages. Maybe you're picking out your very first policy, or maybe you're just looking for something that works better for you and your family. Either way, they make it simple to see your options. No guesswork, no surprises. Ready to see how easy and fun shopping for car insurance can be? Visit Progressive.com and give the Name Your Price tool a try. Take the stress out of shopping and find coverage that fits your life, on your terms. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Hear that? That's now Crispy and McCrispy strips meeting Creamy Caesar sauce. Sounds extra crispy. Caesar sauce at McDonald's for a limited time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
It's a beautiful summer day, and we're at Chrissy's garden. Jasmine and I have driven more than 2 hours to see it. Chrissy is a really good gardener. It's been her thing for decades. Not just a green thumb. It seems like she has a green everything.
So I'll put some vegetables in here. I'll put some tomatoes in here, and I'll put peppers in. And then I have all these herbs here.
Chrissy has always found joy growing things in community gardens, in her own backyard, weeding out what doesn't need to be there. These days, the hobby that has long brought her joy also comes with some extra peace. Because for the first time, in a very, very long time, Chrissy lives alone. At 79 years old, Chrissy is about to get a divorce. It's a really complicated situation. It's actually a lot easier to talk about plants.
So there's something called winter sowing, which has come on maybe 6 or 7 years ago. It started. So you get a milk jug, cut it in half like this, put holes in the bottom, put a couple holes in the top, and then you put dirt in it and put seeds in it. And in December or November or whenever you want, you put this outside, and it sits outside all winter. And then in the spring, there it is.
That's so cool.
But today, Chrissy is going to tell us her story. She's going to help us figure out how to make healthy relationship decisions at any time in our lives, because we can. From the Boston Globe, this is Love Letters. I'm Meredith Goldstein. I must start by reiterating, our Love Letters Friends with Benefits Club has launched. Exclusive friends get an ad-free experience, an extra episode a month, some supersized episodes that include extra material, and there's also some Love Letters swag. All you have to do is click on the link in our show notes to join. I will say, this membership option is complicated for my sister Brett because she likes to hear me read ads. Weirdly, she loves it. So she wants to be a friend with benefits, but she also just wants to hear me awkwardly do podcast ad reads. Truly, if you're a weirdo like her and fear that joining the club means missing me tell you about products, I promise I will send you those ads. For others, of course, not hearing many minutes of ads is a perk. And the biggest perk is, of course, that extra episode a month. Our latest, right there waiting in the feed, is quite sweet. We have a summer intern, Celine, who is 22, and she told me she's obsessed with Sex and the City and said that everyone her age loves the show. I'll admit I was a bit surprised by this because I didn't know that the show would hold up for Gen Z, but Celine says they're all huge fans and that they believe Carrie Bradshaw is the ultimate villain of the show. Celine has become a Love Letters listener, so I told her that as part of her summer internship at the Globe, she should try to interview a Sex and the City writer. In this new bonus episode, Selena and I grill Cindy Chupak, a writer who worked on Sex and the City for years and is responsible for some of the biggest episodes. Cindy, Selena, and I get into Burger and the Post-it note. We get into Miranda's mom's funeral. Really, it's a multi-generational conversation about the culture of dating and friendship. Cindy also winds up telling stories about breakups in her own life that became plot points for her characters. Here's a little clip.
I was basically broken up with through his doorman. Like I went over there and his doorman said, he's not coming down ever was what. And then in that episode, I think Miranda says that was a breakup she had. But I always thought I always thought, why do men just disappear? That seemed like such a bad way. And then I think somebody broke up with me and actually in person told me everything they didn't like. And I was like, well, that was not good either. So I don't think there is a good way to break up.
You can join Friends with Benefits to get that episode. The link is in our show notes, or just visit globe.com/loveletters/friendswithbenefits. Now back to that garden from the start of our episode. I want you to meet Chrissy, who has a second home not too far from a beach in New England. Her house is set back from the road, with flowers blooming everywhere. It has wind chimes, chirping birds, and inside, a well-appointed kitchen. From certain angles, it kind of looks like the set of a Nancy Meyers movie in which a Diane Keaton character would start over while wearing a great outfit. Chrissy is that kind of Diane Keaton character. She's 79, and like I said, she's about to get a divorce. People talk about gray divorces, and that phrase often means divorces over 60. But when you're divorcing as you plan your 80th birthday, that's something else. I heard about Chrissy through a mutual friend, and I said, I want to talk to her about this choice to enter marriage. This mutual friend reached out, and Chrissy said, sure, I'm happy to be on a podcast, as long as we can use a pseudonym. So Chrissy is just the name we're using today, and we'll be vague about some details and locations because Chrissy hasn't even told everybody in her life the details, and she wants to maintain everyone's privacy. To start, some background on Chrissy. She grew up in a Midwestern home with religious parents who were both raised on farms. At Chrissy's home, it was all about designated roles.
My mother made 3 meals a day. We had 2 vegetables, potatoes, bread, and a piece of meat for dinner every night at 6 o'clock. My father was always home by 5:30, and he did all the work outside, and she did everything in the house.
Chrissy's suburban house growing up keeps her close to her dad's family's farm. What kind of farming?
His farm sort of evolved over time, depending on what the market was. The piece that I was most aware of is he raised turkeys. I can remember as a kid wandering through the fields with a flock of turkeys surrounded by them, and we would have to sleep outside in a little tiny house in the fields to make sure that the foxes didn't come. So,
Like in a sleeping bag waiting to scare them?
It was a little hut. It was big enough for a bed. That was it. And yeah, you would wait for a fox. It was exciting to be a little kid and sleeping out in the middle of a field, waiting for the fox to come.
It sounds idyllic, and it is kind of. It has its ups and downs. Chrissy assumes she'll get married and have kids like her parents did, but she doesn't want Midwestern religious farm life. She wants to forge her own path, and in a direction that's a bit more worldly and exciting. Chrissy goes to college not too far from home. She's interested in psychology. During a summer job, she meets a man. They fall in love and get married. This man needs to get his doctorate degree in Canada, so Chrissy, of course, follows. But this winds up being a shorter relationship than anticipated. She's married in 1969 and divorced around 1976.
So that relationship played out. He was not a person who believed in monogamy, to putting it mildly.
So did he tell you he didn't believe in monogamy going into that, or you learned that?
No.
Okay.
And it was also the 60s. So things were immensely different in the 60s. And, getting in bed with somebody was nothing, or it was sort of expected that you would do that. But once you were married, I had never really thought that through. So that once you were married, that was quite different, that he still was in those same patterns.
Jasmine and I both just finished a watch of Mad Men, so we nod our heads to this as if we know everything that happened in the 60s and how men did whatever they wanted while women were at home.
So we were married about 6 years. And during that time, he became quite successful, but he also got into a lot of trouble because of his profession and because of his philandering. So I felt quite justified in getting divorced.
This marriage has served a purpose, of course. It's a learning experience, but it also brought Chrissy to Canada. In this new home, she gets roommates, lives communally. Eventually, she buys her own place, and she moves to different areas, experiencing the world as a single person who does what she wants. Chrissy is single for the rest of the 70s. And by the way, the 70s feel very different when it comes to relationship politics.
Most of the people I knew weren't married.
Okay.
So it was an incredibly different time in life. So that was the 70s. And people lived together at that point. Or you had numerous relationships.
Chrissy decides she wants to get a master's degree in a field related to mental health. She comes to New England to do it, starting her program in the early 80s. She's in her mid to late 30s at this point. At this age, Chrissy wants to retry marriage and kids. She's ready to build a life centered around home, family, and community.
So I was really clear with myself, no more just having fun with somebody. They've got to be ready to be serious about getting together as a couple.
It doesn't take her long to find someone. When she starts this graduate program, there's an event to welcome new students. And he's right there, the man who will become her second husband.
My first thought was, anybody that good looking is going to be boring. Or he's going to be conceited, or he's going to be whatever. I wasn't interested. But he sort of pursued me, and then it was fun. That when it was exciting. He came from an extremely different background than I did. He was from New York. He was Jewish, and his family was pretty socially active in a major way. And although my family was very comfortable, his family was more than comfortable. So it was the handsome stranger.
They date and get serious. Their programs are intense academically, and it's a lot to study, work, and be in their relationship. Chrissy and this man have different internships for their degrees, so they have to work like crazy, then fly to see each other on weekends, trying to pack everything in.
I think if we had paid attention, we would have noticed that already we were having very different expectations of what it should be like to be together.
Almost 2 years into the relationship, they get married. The year is 1984.
Immediately, I got pregnant, which was certainly, by his definition, was not supposed to have happened. But I was 39, and I was happy that it happened, even though we were both surprised it had been so easy. He thought we would have a couple of years of traveling and living together and going out and partying and going out for dinners, and I got pregnant immediately.
Chrissy's husband already had a son from a previous relationship. He'd been married once too. For the first time, his son is going to be living in New England. So Chrissy and her husband start building a life not too far away from him and not too far away from where they went to school.
We bought a house, which he was not excited about either because he'd been raised in apartments. Big apartments, but he'd been raised in apartments. To me, that's the only thing that could possibly happen was we'd buy a house. And so almost immediately we were out of step with where we thought things were or what we wanted.
Do you remember having conversations about this kind of thing, about timeline for children or where you would live? Or
Well, we sort of did, but we weren't very good at negotiating those things. But also, it happened pretty quickly. So within the space of 2 years, we met. We were separated a lot of the time just because of school, and then we got married. And I'm sure I was the motivator in that because my biological clock was ticking.
these early days in the house are really hard for Chrissy. Her husband already knows the area. He'd lived in New England for many years, but she was from the Midwest and had been living in Canada, so this wasn't quite home.
I didn't have any friends there. And I'd left a life that I loved and with lots of friends and was pregnant. So I knew nobody who was pregnant or had little kids or really didn't know anybody. So for me, it was pretty hard. What somewhat saved my life was 2 doors down from the house we bought. There was a husband and wife, pretty much my same age, and she was pregnant at that point. So the two of us bonded desperately together. So I had this friend next door, and so we became quite close and spent a lot of time together.
Chrissy is actually very good at making friends and building community. That part gets better. And let me say, Chrissy starts a garden here. It's what she's been doing everywhere she calls home. She wants to leave things more beautiful and better than she found them. In this house, she puts in flowers, new landscaping, the works. The property is looking lovely, but inside of the home, in the marriage, there are complicated and isolating moments.
I really spent a lot of time, as I think a lot of women probably do, of sort of making do, or, okay, I'm going to ignore that. Okay, we'll do it your way. There was also, when I tell this story, I'm thinking, why were we together?
Chrissy says that part of this is that her husband has more income than she does. She's working a little, but she's taking care of their child. He works full-time in the mental health field.
And so there was the way that then I sort of felt like I had to contort myself into doing it his way. Now, there's so much of this I take responsibility for, but even more than that, I wanted to be married and I wanted to have kids. So it was the agreement I made with myself that I would just stick with it.
They also do have fun. They love going out to dinner. She likes entertaining, and he likes to be part of the social events she plans. They visit their extended families together. Eventually, Chrissy decides, I want another child. After trying to get pregnant, she and her husband decide to explore adoption.
And I was almost 50. Adopting a child was something that I really pushed for. That took a long time to come to an agreement about that.
With him.
With him. Went into therapy at that point in time. And my going into therapy, I went in with, we're going to stay in therapy until we both feel comfortable with whatever decision we make about adopting or not adopting. So we adopted a little girl, and he was pretty excited about that point.
Raising children gives Chrissy so much to think about beyond her marriage. The relationship moves around kids, jobs, life, and Chrissy is building a world that she's curating and running. This is an emotional labor that sometimes people talk about. Chrissy is building the life that her husband is absolutely a part of, but she's the one driving it.
I assumed most of the work of childcare. I assumed most of the work of social connections. And I made a lot of community, was involved in the community in lots of ways. So that I got a lot of satisfaction from, and I had good friends. many of whom I still have.
Chrissy describes a happiness in life, but also a lack of marital partnership that is really hard to explain. It's a lack of connection between the two of them that at the time doesn't seem overly problematic on any given day. What she describes reminds me of a lot of TV shows where two people are in suburbia and they're sort of coexisting. It actually reminds me a little of my parents before they got divorced. Everyone is doing what they believe they're supposed to be doing, but there's no mutual connection when it comes to planning and focusing on the objectives of the marriage, so it all feels disconnected.
I'm sure I'm simplifying this a little because it was certainly not clear to me at that point what was happening exactly. He'd also had an affair when I was pregnant, but I didn't. Also, remember that I was coming out of the 70s when, oh, you slept with somebody? Oh, fine.
Yes, that is a part of this. Chrissy's husband slept with someone at the start of their marriage, and perhaps it's one of the first obvious things swept under the rug. She found out about that betrayal about a decade after it happened, and at that point, it was sort of like ancient history. And in general, things always work just well enough not to make a change.
I used to always think that as long as things were 51%, it was okay. And 49% not okay. As long as we're 51, then okay. But if it tips and goes the other way, if it's 51 not okay and 49, that's when you have to do something.
By the way, when Chrissy says her goal was 51% happiness, Jasmine and I are shocked. That number sounds wildly low to me as a 40-something. I immediately say the happiness ratio in a relationship should be more like 70-30 or 80-20. That seems like a way better goal. Jasmine, in her 30s, is like, how about 90% as a goal? Which seems very high to me because I figure if you know someone for decades, the weird and bad days do add up. But I like her optimism. And I'm not just talking about romantic relationships, by the way, with my 80-20 thing. I'm talking about friendships, too. They also get difficult, and you work through them. Anyway, the point is, Jasmine and I hear Chrissy say she was fine being happy 51% of the time, and we think this is a very low bar. Chrissy does think this might be a generational thing, these expectations of marriage, and how happy you should actually be. But in the end, it doesn't matter, because years later, the 51% of the time spent happy, it's not there anymore. The real turn happens when Chrissy is in her late 60s. This is when she finds out that her husband has had another affair, a different kind of affair. All I can really say, without divulging too much information, is that this affair crosses a professional line and threatens his career. It threatens the well-being of the family, emotionally and financially. Truly, it threatens the whole life they've built. For Chrissy, this is lonely. It's horrible. She's angry. But her mission is to keep the family intact, mostly for the kids, but also for herself. And now, years later, with the kids all grown up, you might think that this very bad second affair is why Chrissy is getting a divorce at 79. But that's not quite it. What is? An explanation when we return. Love Letters is brought to you by Wayfair. Sometimes it doesn't take a huge renovation to change how your home feels. Sometimes it's just finding the right piece. For instance, I'm a big believer that the right bookshelf can transform a room. Maybe it takes up an entire wall, and the colors of your books pop so brightly that every day when you wake up, you think, today could be a very good day. That's what makes Wayfair so useful. They make those little home upgrades feel doable with pieces that fit your style, your space, and your budget. I also like that you can shop with confidence. Wayfair verified products are hand-tested by product specialists for quantity and durability, so you'll know whether that bookshelf can fit 4,000 books. Also, you don't have to spend a fortune to make your home feel more like you. Wayfair has options across a wide range of price points, Wayfair Rewards members get 5% back on every purchase, making those updates feel even more worth it. Join Wayfair Rewards today to get 5% back on every purchase and start saving on your next home upgrade. Head to wayfair.com to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. Love Letters is brought to you by Vinted. I will admit that I'm a person who buys dresses with the hope of them being perfect for me, but then they're not perfect for me, and I wind up with a closet full of clothes that I'm wearing 2% of. And I'm reluctant to get rid of the stuff that didn't work, so I wind up with a $100 dress I never actually wore more than once, and it's sitting there, making me feel guilty. Vinted wants to help people like me, like us, with this kind of problem. Vinted is a secondhand marketplace app that makes it easy to sell the clothes you're no longer wearing, earn some extra money, and give quality pieces a second life. The process is simple. You can list your items right from the app, and once something sells, Vinted creates a prepaid shipping label for you. Plus, there are no seller fees, so you keep everything you earn from every sale. It's a great way to clear out your closet, make room for the pieces you actually love, and get more value out of the clothes you already own. Whether you're doing a seasonal wardrobe refresh or just finally tackling that pile of clothes you've been meaning to sort through, Vinted makes it easy to get started. Ready to start cleaning out your closet and make some extra money? Download the Vinted app for free and start listing. With no seller fees, you keep every dollar you earn, and for a limited time, enjoy free shipping in the U.S. on Vinted.
Hear that? That's now Crispy and McCrispy strips meeting creamy Caesar sauce. Sounds extra crispy. Caesar sauce at McDonald's for a limited time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
We're back with Chrissy. At this point in the story, Chrissy is in her late 60s. Her husband has had a second affair that threatens the livelihood of the family. Chrissy has stayed with him through this mess. They go to therapy after it happens, but Chrissy knows the issues aren't really resolved. But she is very good at living a life around these problems. She and her husband moved to a new neighborhood, and that does help. In this new house, she continues to garden. She's involved with the schools. She finds community.
Just all hang out together.
And what would you do like on a nice night where you weren't thinking, oh, I want to clock this guy?
I want to kill him.
Yeah, when you just were having a normal, like, what was a nice night like?
Well, the nice nights were probably having people over, having friends. I love to entertain. I love to feed people. And those were probably nice nights. Again, when I think about it, we'd go out for dinner. But when I think about it now, I'm not sure what the nice night was. We would be doing flashy things, but...
Like, did you hang out and watch TV? Did you do... No.
No, because I have to laugh because, okay, no, we would watch very different things. He loves deep, dark, angst-ridden things, and I like mysteries. The books we would read would be very different. I don't know what it was like. You know, there's that stage of development for kids where they parallel play. And it's like we spent 30 years parallel playing or 35 years parallel playing.
You might remember that earlier in the story, I mentioned that Chrissy and her husband met while both studying mental health-related careers. That is how Chrissy speaks so beautifully about the idea of the brains of children and how they learn to parallel play. What she means when she talks about it in her own marriage is that they have kids, shared friends, and a life, but they're also existing for years with distance between them, not talking about sadness or goals or how they could have a closer kind of relationship. On Love Letters, we talk a lot about the importance of independence. And at weddings now, I often hear in the vows that people pledge not to get lost in each other because they know the secret to success in a pair is to still have a full life on your own. But there is some happy medium between fusing together and losing yourself and what Chrissy was experiencing, this parallel play. You're supposed to do fun things with the people you love, And while the kids gave Chrissy and her husband reason to experience that, it really wasn't happening for them as a pair. You might ask yourself, how do these two people, with backgrounds in mental health, manage to sweep things under the rug without saying, oh my God, let's stop sweeping and deal with it? I have to ask Chrissy this.
The one thing that you learn as a mental health person, there's nothing that says that mental health people are normal. There's nothing that says that they have their shit together. So I know that one therapist that my husband saw used to tell him it's a race between who gets better first, the therapist or the patient. Yeah. But you do have some capacity for empathy, I think, probably, and you can see problems in a way that maybe because you've experienced them yourself. But it is remarkable to me how many assumptions I just had and how many assumptions he just had. But again, it was also a different time. I'm sure my parents never had those kinds of discussions. They just happened to have come from very similar backgrounds. His parents both had multiple divorces.
Do you feel like a lot of your relationship was like going along to get along?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Until probably a year or two ago.
So what happens that leads Chrissy to say, as she approaches 80, I have to get a divorce? It really starts about 10 years ago with an issue related to age.
I started saying, wow, I'm 70. I've got 10 more years left. There are things I want to do. When are you going to stop working? And he just ignored it. The happiest things were organizing things with my family. And then we'd travel or we'd have family vacation. We've almost never gone away on vacation, just the two of us. It was always with the kids and always with family or friends would be around. So those were my happiest times. But when I turned 70, I started saying, look, I don't have much time left. There are things I still want to do. And he never paid any attention to that.
She wanted to make a plan as a married couple for their future.
And then when I turned 75, even more loudly, I started talking about, I'm 75. I'm 2 years older than he is. When can we start planning a life together and do things together?
Chrissy was turning 75 right around when the world was opening up after lockdown. And now that the world is open, Chrissy is like, okay, I imagined an eventual future where we do things, like other couples do things. But still, I'm just mostly doing my own things, gardening, or planning things that you happen to do, but it's not really a plan we make together. She decides she needs to take action.
And that's actually when I finally said, I've always wanted a house near the beach, near the water. And I finally said, I'm either going to do it with you or I'm going to do it without you, but I'm going to do it to get a house on the beach. So that's when we bought this house.
Chrissy is thinking the kids are older, and now is the time that she and her husband can be alone together. And they do not have an eternity to figure this out. So what now? He does not want to talk about this. So under her direction, they buy the house not too far from the ocean. She gardens there and entertains, and it feels like more parallel living. And that leads to another issue. As all of this is happening, Chrissy's husband makes some financial choices without telling her. As Chrissy puts it, he makes a number of investments that are not good, dangerous, and what she calls dubious investments that he doesn't even tell their financial people about. It's a pretty big loss. When Chrissy accidentally discovers this, they go to therapy to talk about this betrayal. And that's where she starts to say, oh my God, I don't know if I even want to live together anymore. Not only do they have different goals, she has to admit to herself she doesn't trust him. It is really miserable. And let me say here that I cannot pretend that Chrissy makes this seem like an upbeat Diane Keaton kind of movie. This is a marriage of decades that has led to this, and it's really upsetting. When you said you don't want to be married anymore, do you remember the vibe of the room and his reaction?
Well, I think he was really sad. We were both very sad. I tried again to do my thing about, oh, it's not that bad. I'll just get by fine. We'll just make do. And the therapist said to me, you have said you don't respect him. You've said you don't trust him. What are you doing saying that you think you can get back together again?
It's almost a year ago when Chrissy says to her husband, please move out so I can live my best life as an older person. Chrissy now spends a lot of time in this place, by the beach. She believes her husband never wanted to be there anyway. She's hoping she can hang on to this house, despite financial losses, to keep enjoying it. You might ask, why do the paperwork? Why not divorce in spirit, but stay in the marriage? Chrissy says it's because her husband wants to get married again. She doesn't think he's dating anyone, but he wants the option. But I can sense it's a spiritual thing too that helps Chrissy. She really doesn't want to be married anymore. She already was, and she built a life within that marriage. But now she is single. By the way, of course she thinks about her husband and worries about him, but she does this as an empathetic ex, not as a partner.
My kids have been very supportive, and that really helps. And my friends are pretty supportive, and it finally feels like, oh, okay, I can do this.
When did you start telling people?
Pretty soon after that, probably. Although I had a lot of trouble and still have trouble with the divorce word, with the D word.
There are people in the world who, even when I told my editor, oh, Jasmine and I are going down, we're going to interview someone who is 79 and getting a divorce, and this woman is probably early 50s. She was like, wow, I can't imagine doing that at that age. And I keep thinking, yeah, but there's all this, you're living your life and there's all this time to live it. And there's a sunk cost fallacy of what would you tell people about getting divorced at this age when people don't understand?
One thing I've noticed is I'm much more relaxed than I was for many years. I think you don't notice how, I hadn't noticed how contorted I'd made myself into this person who tried not to upset him, not to, and it is terrifying a little bit. The thing I find the most terrifying is having to do things on the computer and paying bills on the computer, or all these, I must say that part of my internal deal was, okay, he'll handle all the money, I'll handle everything else. That isn't the way it works exactly, but now to have to be responsible in that way, it's kind of daunting.
Jasmine and I want to know, how does this decision open doors for this very important part of Chrissy's life?
Before you'd come to the realization of, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm going to actually go through with this, how did you picture the last 2 decades of your life? And has that picture of what the last 2 decades of your life is going to look like changed now?
Thank you for saying that I have 2 decades. That would mean being 100. I don't want to be 100. I don't even want to be 90. And I've been fairly clear about saving enough money so I can go to Switzerland and at some point and decide that I don't want to live anymore. I'm not one of these people who wants to have a prolonged life where I can't do anything, can't. That's why I sort of feel like even more clearly, okay, I have 6 years to do something or not, but to be active still.
Chrissy is so much more at ease, with permission to do life for herself, but she has to figure out how to do it in a way she didn't plan for.
The moments that I've had trouble, well, there's several moments that I've had trouble. I have one friend whose husband retired about a year and a half ago. They have been traveling all the time. They just came back from Sicily. Well, when she tells me about it, that's the one time I feel really sad and envious. Because, they take off for long weekends places. They go visit friends in far places. So I've been investigating. There are tour companies now that are specifically for women. They do small groups. I'm toying with that as a way to celebrate my 80th birthday. So there are things that I intend to do. And I'm a little worried that I'll just get so sucked into taking care of my grandkids and my kids that I won't get around to doing that.
What have you found about living some of these retirement age dreams? Like you kind of accidentally or intentionally set up a pretty good deal here. And so what has it been like to do some of these things alone, to still do them, but just not with a partner?
It doesn't feel like I'm doing them alone because I have a pretty strong friend group. So that doesn't seem too much.
You don't have a weight anymore.
I don't have to wait anymore. Right.
You don't have to wait, and you don't have the weight, the burden.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I do have a dog, which is a responsibility. But aside from that, no, you're right. I don't.
I have to give you some inside information here. This afternoon with Chrissy, it was the first time I felt a strange sense of guilt after a Love Letters interview. Usually I leave our interviews, even the sad ones, feeling like we all did group therapy, with lessons for everyone. But with Chrissy, it was strange because I could tell she hadn't ever said some of these things out loud, or at least told this story from her perspective without having to worry about anyone else. I could tell she was really shell-shocked whenever she had to explain a betrayal or about 10 years of life that went by with parallel play. She had this vibe of, oh my God, why did I put up with that for so long? It was like she had told Jasmine and I this life story. She looked so overwhelmed, and then we were like, okay, thanks, traveling back to Boston, have a good night. I sort of felt like we had been vampires who sucked the details out of her and left her with no support. I was not shocked to get a text from her the next morning about what she had shared. She hadn't changed her mind about disclosing things. It was just clear that she felt uncomfortable being the main character of the story. And I was like, you're the guest, so it is your story. You're allowed to have main character syndrome when you're literally the main character of the podcast episode. But I think she also felt upset that a lot of the story was sad and represented patterns that kept repeating. But Chrissy had missed what Jasmine and I talked about on the drive home. It was a more subtle part of the interview, but what Jasmine and I noticed was how much world building Chrissy had done over decades. Maybe she was 51% happy in her marriage, but when it came to her whole life, that number shot up. Because she found hobbies, because she loved her children, because she always found ways to have a rich life. Because she was gardening like a fiend, or having people over for dinner, or doing projects. I met Chrissy because one of our mutual friends is one of many people who love hanging out with her. And now, at almost 80, instead of saying, okay, I've got almost 10 years left, I guess I'll try to work around my husband, she's like, no, I want to chart a new course. I can try something different. I texted her back that we left that interview talking about a cool woman who does what she wants. In the present, it looked pretty aspirational. When Chrissy took us around her property that day, it just seemed like she was living her best life.
If I'm just feeling crappy, just being out here and working, it's the most therapeutic thing there is.
Oh, big time. Do you lay in the hammock?
No.
Chrissy is entering a new phase of herself. Insert any gardening metaphor you want right here, because it's all just going to keep growing.
It's not like it's only a negative. It's my life path, sort of. And I recently heard someone, of course, who I can't remember who it was talking about, she was about my age, and she was talking about how she wasn't looking at it as getting old. She's just approaching her life as, oh, wow, this is another stage of life. I'm going to be really curious about how it goes. I'm going to see how it looks and try things. I guess that is how I'm trying to navigate this. And I've tried to look back on, when I tell you the story, I think, wow, what was I thinking? Not much, but some of it was probably very deliberate. The ways that were the only ways I could think of or figure out at that point as to how to navigate them. So here I am navigating, and talk to me in 15 years. Oh, well, of course I won't be talking, but, maybe I'll have thought this was a stupid thing to do, but okay, well, it's not so bad.
By the way, days before this episode came out, Chrissy booked a trip for her 80th birthday. This fall, she'll be on a Mediterranean island, enjoying herself. Love Letters is a production of the Boston Globe. This episode was produced by Jasmine Aguilera, story edit by Jasmine Aguilera. Special thanks to Celine Hijazi, Carrie Simonelli, Linda Henry, and Brian McGrory. Remember, Love Letters now offers a premium feed for our friends with benefits. If you sign up, you get that extra episode a month, and 2 are waiting for you right now. See the link in our show notes or visit globe.com/loveletters/friendswithbenefits. And remember, we are an advice column. If you have a question on your mind about dating, divorce, marriage, singlehood, whatever, send it to loveletters@boston.com. When you send a question, you help others who are wondering the same thing.
Oh, a gazebo. That's nice.
Nobody wants to eat in there, except for me.
I would love to eat in there.
Yeah,
What's wrong with that?
But probably there would have been too much noise, and I haven't cleaned it out yet for the summer. But
It'd be wonderful. I could see it be very fun to entertain here.
I think I'd like to even sleep in there.
Yeah.
I'm Meredith Goldstein. Thanks for listening. Your gay elders are calling. Pick up. Silver Linings with the Old Gays is a podcast hosted by 4 larger-than-life personalities sharing wisdom, laughs, and a little lovingly earned side-eye after decades of life experience. They talk about everything from health and aging to relationships, queer culture, and the moments that shape who we become. It's honest, hilarious, and surprisingly heartfelt. So if you want stories that are as entertaining as they are meaningful, check out Silver Linings with the Old Gays, wherever you get your podcasts.
What if I told you you only have 12 hours to legally have sex?
To finding true love, or just like a good guy.
From the director of Easy A and Anyone But You.
This whole thing is nuts.
There's nothing traditional about this night.
On August 7th, the clock starts on the summer's biggest rom-com.
I'm Owen.
Allie.
What about you and me?
Monica Barbaro, Callum Turner.
I've been told I'm a 7.
By who? Your mom?
Nah, she thinks I'm a 10.
One night only. Rated R. Only in theaters August 7th.
Class is now in session. And the UPS store is here to help you ace arriving on campus. Our certified packing experts can pack everything you need, from desktops to decor. Plus, when you pack and ship with us, you get our exclusive pack and ship guarantee. Your items arrive safe or your money back. Restrictions and limitations apply. To get a 20% off packing coupon and for full details, visit the upsstore.com/packing.
Hello.
Look what TJ Maxx dragged in.
The Devil Wears Prada 2 is now streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu.
We are digital, we are downloadable, we are streamable.
The fashion event of the year is certified fresh.
Pull yourself together, we have work to do.
Critics say it's smart and witty and the perfect sequel.
That's all.
Get runway ready for The Devil Wears Prada 2 on Disney Plus and Hulu. Rated PG-13.